Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. We're coming to you from the State House in Trenton, New Jersey, where in just a few weeks, Governor-elect Mikey Sherrill will become the next governor in the state of New Jersey. But leading up to the campaign, a lot of organizations will spend time covering the polls, but the polls don't always get things right. And we're going to talk about the role of polls in an election with Frank Cipolla. He's a former reporter who also heads up Contacts Media. He's standing by. First, though, we're going to be speaking with Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman from here, Mercer County. She started her legislative career right here at the State House. She made an announcement that she will not be seeking re-election. I spoke with her. Let's listen in on that conversation. Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, representing New Jersey's 12th Congressional District. Welcome. It's so good to see you. So wonderful to see you.
It's wonderful to see you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. We have known each other for a very long time, going back to your days in the New Jersey Assembly, even before that. And when I saw the news that you were retiring, I was surprised, and I think a lot of people were. So can you talk a little bit about what led you to the decision to where you said, this is going to be my final term?
Well, you said it. You and I have known each other 3+ decades. I've worked in the space of public service all that time. I've been working very hard here in Congress trying to make an administration that I think is very mean and evil to respond to the needs of people. I just think it's time for somebody else to pick up that mantle and to, I hope, share some of the same values in terms of what I believe this government should do and be for the people that it needs to do and be for, as well as to look at our standing internationally. And I grew up thinking that my country was the big brother or the big sister and that people loved us and we helped people. And that's not what's happening now. So I think it's time for somebody else to take over the mantle, and perhaps I'm not going to be a legislator, obviously, but perhaps I still will have a voice.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you will not be going gentle into that good night. We will definitely be seeing more of you. But you made history as the first African-American woman to be elected to Congress to represent New Jersey, and you've done so many things in your time in Congress. Can you talk about some of the highlights, as you look back to say, wow, this is incredible. These are moments that I'm so proud of, that I was able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. I set out to do this, and this is what I did.
So let me just deal with being in the state legislature a minute. I became the first Black woman majority leader. I became the first chairman of the Democratic Party. Having been in those positions, I had uh, some influence with Joe Roberts in particular, a wonderful speaker. So he and I had an agreement on legislation that we won't let come up if I didn't agree. But we worked on important things like housing, A300, I think it is, or A600, uh, making sure that there is affordable housing. I worked on things like criminal justice reform, went all around the state of New Jersey, talking to people who were formerly incarcerated, family incarcerated, uh, folks who did research and all that kind of stuff. Out of that came a really significant battery of legislation. I thought it was scratching the surface. The New York Times said it was unparalleled. Then, I'm minding my business and my Facebook blows up, "Run, Bonnie, run." And I'm like, "Run what?" You're like, "I'm running for Congress because Rush Holt's not going to run anymore." So I had people like James G. and my husband and my brother and some other folks talk to me about what that meant, how that could happen. Got my husband to agree that should I succeed, he'd come with me. I won the primary against very good friends and new friends. And then I got elected to Congress. Came down here, found out it is very different when you're not in leadership. And I was not seeking leadership.
Congresswoman, you served in the New Jersey General Assembly, then going down to Washington, D.C. In the legislature, you were in leadership, but when you went to Washington, D.C., you weren't really looking to get into leadership there. So, can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, when I went down to DC, I decided I just wanted to be a member of Congress trying to advance policy and legislation that was important to me, that some of which I carried over from New Jersey, like the justice issue, the social justice stuff, the former incarcerated stuff that the Sup the New York Times said was really good and I thought was just scratching the surface. But when I ended up in DC, I just wanted to concentrate on doing legislation, being part of committees, and doing my work. So that's what I did, and I started out with Homeland Security and oversight at the same time. Had wonderful opportunity to work under Benny Thompson and Elijah Cummings, amazing people. We did some important things. Elijah and our, committee people did the first emoluments, act against emoluments case against the president, then, Donald Trump. And you see what they're doing now. But I worked on some really good stuff. I do have stuff on, no private prisons. I do have stuff on Second Chance Act. I got stuff on environmental protections and things like that in communities, small and large, urban and poor and rich. One of the things I'm very proud of is my work in mental health. I kept seeing all this stuff on Facebook about little young Black children trying to commit suicide, did commit suicide, talked about committing suicide. I knew in my community that that was a no-no conversation. So we put together an emergency task force on it. We had hearings for months, 6 or 8 months. We worked with a work group that has psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, teachers, etc., working with us. As a result of the information that we garnered, we did a report ringing the alarm, I think is the proper uh, sounding the alarm, ringing the alarm. Out of that report, we put some legislation together pursuing equity in mental health. It has a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah.
None of that leg legislation put close to $1 billion in resources, making sure there's diversity, making sure that, there was education, dealing with faith-based communities, schools, etcetera, everybody. Because in the Black community, if you were Christian, if you had a problem, they said, "Well, you got Jesus," you know? And it takes more than that. God has provided people who are very useful and helpful in space like this. Anyway,
Yeah.
some of the legislation was incorporated, some was not. But I tell you what I think I contributed to. I contributed to an expanded discussion about mental health situation in this country and the government's in inadequacy in dealing with it for everybody, not just Black children, but old people, young people, smart people, not so smart people, white people, gray people, whatever, you know? That
Well,
that's like
that's yeah.
significant.
So, as you finish up your time in Congress, are there any moments that you look back on, things that you weren't expecting, anything, any stories that you want to share, maybe about an unlikely friendship or something that might have touched you, or maybe a note somebody gave you, something that just made you realize, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. This is why I'm doing it. Any stories like that you'd like to share?
2 things. Bill and I drive down to DC by car, and we always stop at a rest station and get a little something to eat, let my husband stand up and do whatever he needs to do. Came back into our car, there was a note on my windshield. I don't know who it's from, but it's framed, it's in my office, and it said, "Thank you, Congresswoman, please continue to fight for us." That's one thing that I certainly didn't expect, but had an impact on me. I had a chance to protest with the amazing Representative John Lewis, a hero. So I got to sit on the floor of the House of Representatives in protest of the House refusing to deal with gun legislation. I mean, so I was just so pleased that God had given me this opportunity to serve with him, to have planned the protest in his office. And I used to look at him in such awe that I once said to him, Congressman, I am not stalking you. I just can't believe God put me in this position to work with you. How blessed am I? So those are two issues, two areas. And the other one was when, I got quote unquote arrested for standing up for women's rights.
Not only a witness to history, but part of history.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept to process.
Do you have any plans for after Congress? I don't think that you're, again, going to be sitting around necessarily, but do you have any thoughts on what you're going to do in 2026 and beyond?
I have no idea what it is, but I know if I'm given an opportunity to talk to anybody, it would be young people who think that they're interested in public service, to have them understand that public service is exactly what it is. It is a commitment to others, not to you. It's not a job. It's not a position. It's not flash dance. And then I want to talk to young people who don't want to go into public service, to find the love and respect and to treat people with dignity who are both working in that space and who are in need of government working in that space. So at the bottom line, I think it's about finding our way back to love and decency, Laura.
Bonnie Watson Coleman, Congresswoman from New Jersey's 12th Congressional District, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Always a pleasure.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for staying with New Jersey Politics, coming to you from the State House in Trenton, New Jersey. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with a former colleague and longtime reporter, Frank Cipolla, who is now the owner of Contacts Media, to talk about the role of polls in elections and campaigns. Frank, it's good to see you.
Pleasure to be here as well. By the way, let me start by saying big fan of ONNJ. I watch Ken, I watch you, I watch Jeanette.
Thank you.
Very big fans of the network. Good job, everybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Frank, you and I, so the viewers know, we work together at News 12 New Jersey. And when you talk about polls, when I was first starting as a reporter in the 90s, our news director told me, Laura, I don't want you to report on the polls. That's the horse race. Let other people deal with that. I want you to focus on who the candidates are, what they stand for, and I want you to go through ads and I want you to fact check them. But now, in the day and age of 24/7 news, it seems that all you see are polls, and the campaigns are using that too. So can you talk to us a little bit about how things have changed through the years and the importance that many networks and campaigns put onto polls, which are getting it wrong?
Well, Laura, you and I are old enough to remember that when they did a poll, they would call a house in Long Beach Island or Newton, New Jersey, or wherever it might be. There was a phone on the wall. It had a 25-foot cord. Somebody would pick up, hi, you Mr. Jones? Yes, where do you live? I live in Newton, New Jersey, Sussex County. Tell me a little bit who you might be voting for. You knew where that person was. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a professional pollster. It's just all these years of watching these polls have gotten me to this discussion. I had this discussion just a little while ago with the former gubernatorial candidate in New Jersey. But the polls have been increasingly inaccurate beginning about 15 years ago and all the way up to this election. And it just drives me nuts because nowadays people might have a 908 area code or a 201 area code, and they may be living in North Carolina or South Carolina Or in Arizona, and somebody calls up and they say, yeah, who are you going to vote for? I'm voting for Jack Ciattarelli. But they have no ability to vote in that race. They're just telling people what they want to hear. And that's why I think that's one of the reasons why these polls are so inaccurate.
Yeah. And the way television stations and campaigns and any other media are using it, they're practically framing it almost like a weather report or a crystal ball of how things are going to go. And it does impact. Well, I'll ask you, what do you think the impact is? How does it affect?
I think the impact is twofold. Number one, you have a situation where people are not really giving their truthful answer. It's almost like a high school test. If they hear from a poll that it's a tight race between Jack Ciattarelli and Mikey Sherrill, they want to be on the right side of it. So they might say, I'm voting for Mikey, I'm voting for Jack. Even if they're not, I think to answer your question, the first part of it is they're not always 100% truthful. Number two, and I think this is a big part of it, a lot of these networks own these polling companies in part. And to say that they were inaccurate means that they're spending money on polling that is incorrect. I'll give you a couple of examples. 2016, Hillary Clinton was supposed to win. She had an 83% chance of winning in 2016. We know what happened in 2016. 2 years later, the governor of Florida is running against Mike Gillum. Mike is leading in 5 of the 7 polls the day before Election Day, and Ron DeSantis wins. And it's gotten increasingly worse. We saw with Mikey Sherrill going into the race, it was supposed to be so tight. Jack Ciattarelli was within, striking distance, or they were virtually tied. And look what happened. So I think what we have is a twofold problem. People are not being 100% truthful, and they may have an area code and live in another spot. And number two, the networks have a vested interest in a lot of these polling companies. And if they didn't talk about polling 6 to 8 months before Election Day, they would have nothing to talk about.
Well, that's it. It's the nature of feeding the beast, 24/7 news. And a lot of times people who have that time to fill, because they don't always have journalists on with a lot of experience, they'll just say information and, well, we can correct it later. That's a whole another television show we could probably go into. But not only did they get it wrong this gubernatorial election, saying that it was going to be really, really tight, Jack Ciattarelli was in striking distance. 2021, Phil Murphy was supposed to walk away with it. And Jack Ciattarelli was within. I mean, we went to bed on election night thinking, oh, wow, looks like Jack Ciattarelli is going to pull it off. Next morning, it turned out that Phil Murphy did get by, but it was razor thin. So how are they getting it so wrong? Yeah.
Yeah, here's the issue that this just drives me nuts. I've looked. I've only seen one story so far on how the polls got it wrong on election night in New Jersey. Okay, and what they do is the networks never come back, and this goes through all the networks. They never come back and say, "Hey, you know what? We got it wrong," because to say they got it wrong will affect how they go use it going forward. So, they don't admit or don't do a deep dive into why they got it wrong. They just continue to report it, or they say, hey, the polls show it was going to be a tight race. It wasn't. So let's talk about next year. And they just move on to something else. And they don't address the core problem. These polls, and I did a commentary on a TV show not too long ago, these polls have been inaccurate for at least 10 years, probably longer, and there's no real solution going forward. At least the networks, or there should be more articles about what is happening that is wrong and how to fix it, but we never hear about that.
Well, and why do you think that is? Is it a lack of actual true journalists in the field? Because, a lot of stations, we've seen firsthand stations cutting the people who make the higher salaries, who have that depth of knowledge that can report with context and perspective. We don't always have that. To be able to say, oh yeah, I remember when this happened and when things were different. Why do you think that is?
Well, you mentioned one of the things just a moment ago. You don't have the kind of experience that we had in the newsrooms when we were starting out. Yeah. I tell a story when I was at WNBC Radio. I was one intern there sitting with all these thunder voices who I'd listened to for years. And at the end of the table was Bill Maher Sr., the comedian's father, who worked in radio. But he had been there 25 years. These old experts in news who were sitting there saying, all right, let's really take a look at this. Nowadays, it's almost in their interest to throw out these numbers and make it sound like it's a close race. Because would you really be watching election night if they said it's going to be a blowout?
Well, and would you come out to vote? I think that there are bigger implications too. Is the media complicit when who's benefiting? I guess, follow the money. Who's benefiting? If the polls are getting it wrong, why are they doing it? We know that there are people behind the scenes, producers loving that horse race, the graphics, the red and blue bars coming and falling, and, the visuals that are, out there. And then they're feeding it to their reporters or anchors who may not even, they might just be reading from a script. They may not, a lot of people are just reading from a script. Let's face it.
Let's be honest with each other. It's called the news business for a reason. I loved being in it 38 years. I loved every single minute of it, but it is a business. Yeah. And in part, these networks own some of these polling companies. And to say they were wrong would be that the network was wrong. So they're not going to do that. Number two, they're not going to take a deep dive because they need viewers to believe that it is accurate enough. So when the next election cycle comes, they can talk about it ad infinitum about what's coming up. And you're absolutely correct. If it's a tight race, it benefits everybody. It benefits the network because more people are watching. If it's a tight race, it means that they'll be there election night watching. It means more money for advertising and so on and so forth. It just drives me nuts when we see a race as we just did last week with Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli, where reading till the day before, it was supposed to be so tight that Jack was within striking distance. And then she wins by 13 percentage points. There was a race in Virginia for senator. Going into the election, the day before election, it had the eventual winner trailing by 7 points, and she won by 13 points. Yeah. So we can't continue to say that these polls are accurate because they are not, and we need a better system, a better methodology.
So if you were a news director, do you think, would you ban them from your newscast or, slap a big old disclaimer, entertainment purposes only?
Well, I think what you said a moment ago, and I think you're talking about the same news director that I am. Mm-hmm. I would say that to my reporters that news director said to you at News 12, yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't want to hear about the polls. Right. I want you to talk to the candidates. I want you to drill down on the issues, but let's put the polls aside because I think it frames something in people's heads. And they either say, you know what, my candidate is so far behind, I'm not going to vote, or it's really tight, I got to get to the polls, and they wait online and it's a blowout. So, just let the only poll that counts, and I know this is a cliche, the only poll that counts is the one on election day. And that's all we need to worry about. I applaud that news director who told you, Laura, don't worry about the polls, because she knows what's right. Yeah.
Frank Cipolla, Contacts Media, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Always so good to see you.
It's always a pleasure coming on. Again, I'm a big fan of ONNJ. Keep doing what you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Frank. And that'll do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics from the State House in Trenton. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.